Oh, hello there. Kind of caught me off guard. Welcome to another exciting episode of Knife Chats with Tobias. I think I'm going to revisit the sunfish pattern of knife. I did a video on the traditional pattern sunfish slash elephant toenail a while back. I've got a little bit of new information on there, and basically my interest in the sunfish pattern has been sparked again, thanks in a large part to Knife Detector, who is very much enamored by the pattern and has a large collection of knife or sunfish knives. And if you're interested in this pattern, I would definitely direct you over to his channel so you can see some really beautiful sunfish knives. Before I begin on the origins of the sunfish knife, let's just talk about what a sunfish knife is. And this is basically it. It's a large frame knife, usually around 4 inches long, sometimes a little longer, sometimes a little shorter. From what I understand, somewhere between 3 3/4 inches to about 4.5 to 5 inches long, depending on who made it. And then it would have a very large pen blade. Yeah, this is a pen blade on one side, and then a very fat spear blade on the other side. And so that is what your sunfish is. This particular one is by Frost, and as you can see, it's got a nice etch on there for Sunfish 1 of 500. And as you can also see, it comes in, when you got it all the way open, to be right at 7 inches long with a blade that is about 2 3/4 inches. So this is about 4 1/4 inches closed or so. Let's see here. So that's about as average as you can get for a sunfish knife. That's really what you're looking at. And as you can tell, the handle on these sunfish is about 1 inch wide, which allows you to put a very wide blade on the knife also. The blade is almost at 1 inch also, just shy of 1 inch wide. And that's your typical sunfish kind of knife. And it is believed that originally, well, some sources claim that this was originally known as an Old English rope knife. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But in any case, this is your basic sunfish knife, what you're seeing here. Now, when I first got introduced to sunfish knives, it was within the white smooth bone collection that I have of Rough Rider knives. And so what we have here is the basic sunfish, very similar to the knife that I was just showing you from Frost, and similar blades, as you can tell. And then there was another sunfish that they had, which is not nearly as traditional as this one, which is right here, which they called a baby sunfish. And the difference between the standard sunfish and the baby sunfish is the baby sunfish was only about 3 inches long, so you have a very short stubby blade going on there, because the knife overall is just 5 inches with a blade here that's about 1 3/4 inches. And then it also has the small secondary pen blade that you see right there too. And that blade is, well, got a cutting edge of right at 1 inch. And so this was known as a baby sunfish. This was known as a standard sunfish. And then there was this other knife that kind of fell in the middle. And if you notice, it's kind of on a sleeve board shape going with it. And this was known as their elephant toenail. And so from the my point of view when I got all these knives was, this was a sunfish, this was an elephant toenail. And the reason this was called an elephant toenail is because of the shape of it, in that it is a sleeve board kind of shape. One side is smaller than the other, and so when you're looking at it, it looks more like an elephant toenail, as opposed to the sunfish, which was just a big fat slab of a knife. I guess this could also look sort of like a sunfish too, though. And if you notice, this is a little bit shorter, coming in at right 3 7/8 of an inches long. And you've got the big fat blade there So overall on this one, it was right at 6 3/4 inches. It's a little bit shorter because it's a little bit shorter than that one. But that was my impression. So that if this were a sunfish, but if you found one that had a sleeve board shape or a smaller end bolster than the top bolster, that was an elephant toenail. And that might very well have been the case at one time, but these days the names are interchangeable. You see people referring to this as a sunfish, and you see this being referred to as an elephant toenail. And so that happens, and my suspect of why that is happening, well, will become a little clearer in just a second when we start going into the history of the pattern. Now, I'll tell you right away that the origins of the sunfish slash elephant toenail are very murky. The knife apparently started gaining popularity either in the mid 19th century or the late 19th century. So sometime between, say, 1840 and 1880, this pattern started becoming popular. And it was pretty much a pattern that was popular in the United States. Now, some sources say that it was very popular in the South. Other sources say no, it was very popular in the Midwest. And other sources say that no, it is very popular up in the Northeast. And depending on which source you're looking at, it was either the mid 19th century or the late 19th century. So we're talking again sometime between 1840 and 1860 or 1860 and 1880 that this pattern became popular in some region in the United States. As for who was using it, about the only thing that is consistent is that it was used among the working class. It was very popular among the working class. This was not a gentleman's carry knife. And depending on who you ask, it was either very big among the maritime crowd, which is one of the reasons it is often known as an Old English rope knife. And in this case, it would have been the people who were working the docks or the people working on fishing trawlers and things of that nature. So somewhere along the coastline and also along the rivers and stuff that were using these knives because they were using it for cutting their nets and everything else. Now, another source, especially the source that talks about it being up in the Midwest, says that it was really popular among carpenters and framers, people who were building buildings and stuff. And for the same kind of reasoning is that it was just a very sturdy knife that could take a beating. Because if you notice with the blade, one of the cool things about the thick blade is you have a wide blade here, which allows you to get to a very thick spine on the knife, as opposed to what you would find on knives with a slimmer build, so that you could actually pound on the back of this. So you could actually do some batoning work with this, so that you could cut through rope, cut through lumber, and cut through all sorts of other things. And that was one of the reasons why this knife was supposed to be very popular among the working crew. And then the final group that it was supposed to be popular with were basically farmers, for the same reason, that it could just take a beating. And the thing is that you end up with a knife with a big sturdy blade, but because of the flat handle and stuff, the knife is still fairly pocketable, even though it is quite heavy. But this was also why this type of knife was known as a vest pocket hatchet. It's because this could be slipped into your vest pocket, and it basically took up no more room than your pocket watch, because it's about as flat as a pocket watch. So that was one of the reasons why it was popular among the working class. You had a really big knife with a short stubby blade, but it could take a lot of work. So it was a very robust knife. But why the name? Why sunfish? Why elephant toenail? Well, the popular reasoning behind the naming of the knife as a sunfish is because it is a big flat knife, similar to a fish, a flat fish known as the sunfish. And so somebody looked at this and said, "Hey, it's kind of like a sunfish, a big flat fish," and that's how it got the name sunfish. And that makes sense considering you also see the canoe and several other knives that are named after something that they resemble. I know a lot of people look at this and go, "I don't see a sunfish in there," but somebody did, and that's why it got the name sunfish. As for elephant toenail, why would it be given the name elephant toenail? I think that has a lot to do with Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus. And if anyone's familiar with the circus, it was very big at the end of the 19th century, and the biggest circus in the 19th century and well into the 20th century was Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus. And one of the most popular animals in Ringling Circus was an elephant named Jumbo. And everyone associated the name Jumbo to be big. I think it actually means hello in Swahili, but the elephant was named Jumbo, and everything started becoming, you had small, medium, large, and then jumbo popcorn. Everything started becoming jumbo. Anything large was starting to be called jumbo, and these knives actually started being called jumbo jackknives. And actually, this here is a jumbo whittler. Yet you see on the thing here a sunfish. So now it's a jumbo sunfish whittler. And I think that's what happened, is that someone associated the large knives, a competitor to somebody who was making these sunfish knives, and they had their knife out there and they were calling it a jumbo jack. And then it became known as the jumbo elephant jack or something like that, and eventually turned into like the jumbo elephant toenail. So they were capitalizing off of Jumbo the elephant by giving the name the elephant toenail, and it went from Jumbo to elephant toenail. That's one of the stories I've heard, and I do think that there might be a little bit of truth behind that, because why else would you end up calling it an elephant toenail except for the popularity of that, especially if these knives are also known as jumbo jacks at one time. So I think that's why you get the name elephant toenail. I also do know that sunfish predates that. They were called a sunfish well before they started being called elephant toenail. So most likely a competitor to whoever was making the sunfish knife came up with the name elephant toenail or jumbo elephant knife, and then it just became the elephant toenail knife. As for the baby sunfish, well, that's because they're a smaller version of the large sunfish, and these are not nearly as old as the sunfish knives are. I think these could very well date from the latter portion of the 20th century. As far as I know, these may even be something that Parker came up with, or maybe even Rough Rider came up with, the idea of the baby sunfish knives. It's just a smaller version of the original, and a lot of smaller versions of originals are like called a baby or tiny or mini. I personally, if I was going to do this and come out with a baby knife, I would have called it after the elephant toenail, and I would have called it the pygmy elephant knife. But anyway, that's just me talking. But that's really where the name comes from, as far as I know. Sunfish, simply because it's a big flat knife, and a company just started calling it their knife the sunfish knife instead of an English rope knife or a pocket hatchet, which were popular nicknames for it. And as far as I know, the elephant toenail name comes from Jumbo the elephant. That's the stories I've heard. And is it myth? Maybe. Is it legend? Who knows? Is it fact? At this point, I really don't care. It's a pretty cool story, and so I'm kind of just sticking with elephant toenail, Jumbo the elephant, sunfish, flatfish that people used to catch, and the knife kind of resembles it. In any case, with that said, what about the original ones, the ones that are actually from the pre-World War One, the ones before 1918? They are out there, they are scarce, and they are expensive. Matter of fact, ones even made today quickly become expensive once they're out of production because they are very popular among collectors. So if you're looking to collect a knife and you're thinking of collecting sunfish knives, I think Knife Detector can also tell you, be ready to spend some money once that knife is out of production. So get them while they're in production, because once they're out, they're just going to go up in price. Will you be able to retire on them? I doubt it, but they're at least a fun knife and not something you see every day. I'll let you go. Let me take just a second to thank you once again for dropping by and spending a few minutes here at Knife Chats with the Pious. I really do appreciate it, and I do appreciate any comments that you leave. So please remember to give me that thumbs up or that you know what, and also don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you'll know when the next episode is up and running. Thanks again for dropping by. Really do appreciate your time here.